Welcome to the Game Momentum podcast, focusing on timeless lessons from senior leaders in hospitality, travel, food service, and technology. I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Cohen, and our special guest today is Mike Hirschler, Chief Growth Officer at Staypineapple. Mike, how are you?
Doing great. It's a beautiful sunny day here in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm doing fabulous. Just a great start.
That's a rare occurrence. So it's a special day in the Pacific Northwest then.
Yeah.
Little secret, in the summertime, this is a pretty neat place to be. In fact, I think I read somewhere that Seattle is one of the top 2 domestic destinations this year for summer travel. So we're pretty excited.
There you go. I mean, it's a beautiful spot. I love traveling, doing business there, and great to be with you, Adam, as well. Nice to be contributing to what we do at the Game Momentum podcast. So thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is a sense of place that comes along with Staypineapple and its roots in the Pacific Northwest along the West Coast. Mike, start us off. Talk about the brand, how it started, and this whole idea of out of the ordinary hospitality.
Sure. Well, it started with parking lots. So if you ever come up to the Seattle area, chances are, and you park in a paid lot, you'll park in a Diamond parking lot. So Joe Diamond is our founder's grandfather, and obviously, as Seattle grew, he built quite a parking lot empire, if you will, and then that translated into commercial real estate, and on Michelle Barnett's side of the family, which is Michelle is the owner of Staypineapple. She joined the commercial real estate side with her parents. And, but she had a career in hospitality before that. And when coming back to the family company, said, let's get into the hotel business. And it all started with buying several distressed assets in Seattle and turning them into something special. Initially, those 3 hotels were managed by a third party. Michelle and her family then created the Maxwell Hotel, which was the first ground up build. And at that point decided, we should try doing this on our own. And let's see if we can turn this into something. And that's how Pineapple Hospitality was born, probably about 13, 14 years ago. As time went on, the company expanded through opportunistic purchases of hotels down the West Coast. It started with Portland, San Francisco, San Diego. San Francisco was completely overhauled, got renovation of the cool historic building on Geary Street. And at that point, I was like, well, we got scale here. What if we turn this into a brand? Because we've got some cool ideas to make this fun and unique and different. That's how Staypineapple brand was born. And then over the ensuing years, extended on to Chicago, Boston, and New York. And that's our current footprint. And just before the pandemic hit, we'd been approached by an outside ownership group that was going to purchase those original 3 and asked if we would consider managing them. We hadn't thought about that. We were going to, as many owners do, leverage those sales into something else. And that was when I think the light bulb initially went off. And obviously the pandemic kind of put a halt to the sale and obviously put a halt to growth and expansion plans. There was a lot of recovery in the ensuing several years. We actually think it was really a good thing because it allowed us to really start to hone in on what it is that is our differentiation. And here we are today. We've backed into management by selling off several of our assets. In fact, again, those original 3 hotels, 3 separate ownership groups, all 3 of those sales were unencumbered because we wanted to fight for the management contracts. And we got all 3 management contracts, which we're very excited about. So we're moving in the asset light direction to really focus on what it is that we believe we can do best. And that is to be a really cool, different lifestyle brand and bring it out to other markets.
I think it's so interesting, Mike, and I'm going to do a compare and contrast, which is very pejorative. And of course, it's, Staypineapple is a different scenario, different vibe. But there was a time when Joie de Vivre and Kempton, and I'm going with this here.
You're not the first to make that comparison. We've done that ourselves.
Of
We
course.
like to think of ourselves as Kimpton in about late 90s.
So you know what? Then I'm really happy I brought it up because I know it's sort of an obvious. But they were a client of mine at HQ level, and so was Joie de Vivre, and for technology and innovation for years. And um, I'll just say it was some of the greatest work to be involved in. And this is about State Pineapple, but I love the essence perhaps, or maybe even the hat tip, or however you want to do it, the little bit of flavor that you guys have obviously optimized and expanded upon and made your own. But that gap or space in the North American industry, you know, because of growth and large transactions, of course, like was great timing for State Pineapple to kind of fill this important space, even if it's a mind space of consumers and guests, for that kind of boutique, more bespoke, still well priced, not budget, but not stratosphere type scenarios, and actually get a real feel of the community and the history of the building and etc. So I'm just going to say this, and I don't always say this on this podcast. Kudos, because there was a need for it, and I lived it both as a consumer and as a executive. That kind of energy within our industry. So it's really great to see State Pineapple grow.
No, truly appreciate hearing you say that, Mike. And I think there's a couple of things that I'd respond to that. One is it does start with a visionary founder. Um, and I was not here in the days when they would have what they would call big ideas meetings, which really led to the vision and some of the quirky, crazy branding that serves as the foundation that then has allowed us as the current exec team to then pivot to how do we then capture that into and monetize that, right? And turn it into a true service model. It was kind of initially focused on product, and then that has then been leveraged into, well, we've got a cool, quirky product that actually, when you look at our soft goods package, is best in class. Luxury where it counts is what we like to say. So to your point before about what space do we serve, it's for those that are on the aspirational scale. Maybe, and to your point, maybe you aren't really willing to spend $1,000 a night for for where some of the luxury properties have gone for a standard guest room, but they want character and they want service experience. The second piece of that is I couldn't be prouder to work with the leadership team that we have in this organization at the senior and executive leadership team level. We have 175 combined years of large hotel management, executive leadership experience. So we've been at all of the big brands, but we are in it for the passion of hospitality. And what I think we found is that we were all kind of square pegs and round holes as those organizations. And right, there's different needs for different reasons, and things happen. But oftentimes, the larger the scale, the less in tune you are with what your end user is. So whether that's the guest or the team member that sits on property. And this group has come together and we're like, let's just go have fun. Let's make it fun for our team members. So we make it fun for our guests. And fun doesn't mean that it's a giant party all the time. It just means that it's like, wow, this is a different place. This is not the bland. This is not the beige. This isn't a dressed up boutique hotel, something that has the look and the feel, but really is still beholden to a number of different standards that have been focus grouped and determined in some anonymous corporate office in a business park outside of Washington, D.C. And so, it's kind of a fun time. It's always gritty. It's difficult. It's challenging. I don't call us a startup, but I would say we're definitely an upstart. And we're excited to see where it goes.
Awesome. I have one more point just to sort of bow tie this intro here, and that is a phrase I use, which is the story is the specificity. And you mentioned things like boutique, quirky, square pegs, round holes. Can you color that with just a few of the minor touches that State Pineapple does exceptionally well to really color that guest experience and this on-site storytelling?
Sure. Let's start with the product first. I think there's two things on the product side. One is we were opportunistic buyers, and again, Michelle's vision was, let's be in the best markets we can possibly be. I mean, to sit there and say a 10 hotel brand that is in the 7 cities that we're currently located across the country, that's a pretty big footprint for a very small scale organization. So our buildings are just crazy different. We go from a 24-foot wide by 25-story tall pencil building in Midtown Manhattan to what was a 207 unit SRO building in the Gaslamp of San Diego that was converted into a 96-room Holiday Inn Express that was sold immediately before opening. And all of the case goods that are in that hotel were intended for a Holiday Inn Express, to Staypineapple Chicago, which I was just at. And it's one of the original skyscrapers in Chicago. Daniel Burnham designed, just a complete historic gem, full service property with valet parking, 3-meal-a-day restaurant. So from just a building standpoint, every single building has this unique story behind it. It's got an independent feel. Many of our hotels are independently named, and to give it that feeling. So you get the neighborhood story through the building itself. Then what we do is we do have brand standards, but we keep it tight. We keep it to the things that are most important. And there is nothing more important in our view than the soft goods experience. It is your mattress, it's your sheets, it's your towels. And we did a crazy thing. We brought in examples from all of the brands, the top brands that were recognized. We cut off the tags and we basically said, okay, what do you like best out of each of these different products? And then we went to our vendors and we said, okay, how can you make it better? I have never met anybody that doesn't say that our bath towels are not the most comfy, most amazing, most absorbent bath towels they've ever used in a hotel. My partner insisted, when I was asked by a friend that loves bathrobes, if I could get him a bathrobe. And she said, well, wait a second, you're going to get him one and not me one. And so that is the only bathrobe she ever uses. Our mattresses and our house are Staypineapple mattresses. So from a soft goods experience, which we call the naked experience because they're so comfy, cozy, and clean, you don't mind it, everything just touching your body and just getting yourself nice and wrapped up in everything. And you sleep better. I mean, again, with that, our property in Chicago, and I sleep so soundly. And that's a personal story, and you hear that. So those are the two product things that I think is the building itself, and then the soft goods experience, which is most important to our guests in terms of product. And then ultimately it comes down to the people, and it's the direct connection between the team members that are on site and the guests themselves. And there's some really different things from a paradigm perspective that we do, that we can talk more about, that really allows our teams on site to put all of the focus into the guests. It allows the managers on site to put all of their focus into the guests and the team members and not get distracted by the administrative and the bureaucracy.
It's interesting there. If I can interject, Adam, I really enjoyed Dina's presentation at the Muse Unfold conference in April, which was your president, which was such an interesting. She did a wonderful job of reiterating maybe a little more depth what we're going to talk about today, because she had it. But karma, energy. It sounds woo-woo to some people, but this, I remember we know how to say yes, or we know to say yes philosophy. That really struck with me as an observer of the conference and her particular panel. And just, if we can talk a little bit about that, if that's okay, Adam. The reality is that, there's tech, there's infrastructure, there's real estate, there's, but philosophy and energy from top down, bottom up, side to side, I think is so mission critical to what you guys have built and are building as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was speaking with some folks that were in our property this week, and they had seen Dina speak a couple of years ago, and they'd been spending the better part of a day or two. They were doing some filmography for us, and they said, "You know what's crazy?" And they were just like totally shocked. They're like, "All of the things she said, people do here, and they say here." And it was just this almost this disbelief. Like, what are you guys feeding everybody? Because you don't see this, right? You always hear there's, and not to get cliche and certainly not to be, this isn't about our own ego, but it is, you hear the platitudes that come from the top, and then it gets diluted as it goes down. And whatever is the mission or the vision or the value statements don't always get felt at the base level, whether that's the guest or, again, the frontline employees. My background is 25 years in HR. And so from my perspective, there is nobody more important than the frontline team members. The folks that work in the office with me here, I think we do work really, really hard to constantly remind them we are here to support the 85% of the team members that are in this field. It does not go the other way around. And I think with that, from a cultural standpoint, always remaining grounded in what it is that we do, who it is that we serve, makes certain that you always have a touchstone. And Dina does such a good job from a leadership perspective of really carrying forward Michelle's vision as she stepped away from the day-to-day operations of the organization, has truly become, an owner leader. Dina has been able to carry forth that vision. And I think it started because she comes from a real estate and development background. It started in carrying forth the vision of the product. But Dina has such a great charisma and has such passion for what it is that we do and our people, that it was an easy translation to make it about the entirety of the brand. And I really do, appreciate you bringing that up, because it is special. It can sometimes sound like, oh, okay, they think they've got it all figured out. But when you talk to our guests, again, I was talking to a potential partner for a deal that may be happening, may not happen. You never know how these things go. But she had been to the bar at one of our properties and just sat down and was having a drink. And a guest, unsolicited, started just gushing about how much she loved the hotel, how much she loved the staff. And of course, I had to say, yeah, we actually pay that person to just sit there and promote us. But it's amazing. I am shameless in plugging. I don't have my vest on right now, but I have a Staypineapple vest that I wear everywhere that I go. And people will just literally just stop and say, do you work for the brand? And you always, in the hospitality business, get a little nervous when somebody asks, work for the brand, and I'll say yes. And then it's like it comes pouring out of them, because to your point earlier, people are hungry for true authenticity. We like to use authenticity as part of a design aesthetic or how we're supposed to deliver the service, but they're actually hungry for the actual authenticity. And that means that there may be some bumps and bruises to that, right? You could walk into some of our properties and say, yeah, this hotel could probably use a refresh. But there's a reason why people love it. They love it because it feels real. It's not, lipstick on a pig, right? It's real. It's representative of where you are, and the people that serve you are representative of the community that you're in.
I want to dive into one other point about your background, talking about culture and working in human resources. First, as background, before you joined Staypineapple, you were at Four Seasons for 15 years. Is that correct?
14 years, 356 days, but I wasn't counting.
Okay, yeah. I'm not that good at math to know what that adds up to.
I didn't get my 15-year gift. I'm not
Yeah.
still bitter about that.
Oh,
But
Don't worry. Don't worry. Izzy still has it in the mail. It's okay.
yeah. I think it's still getting shipped all over the country.
so one role you had was director of university relations. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That is
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
And we always talk about people, and a part of that is where is the next generation of hoteliers coming from? And in my mind, that role, developing a direct relationship between a hotel and a university or a college, is so important for developing that means of making our industry aspirational. So, within that, I'm wondering if you could unpack what you did for that role, how you built that relationship, what initiatives you undertook to really bring to the forefront not only Four Seasons, but the entire industry for the next generation of career professionals.
You're the first person to ever ask me that question. So I
Doesn't surprise me, Mike. Does not surprise me. This is not a Michalensky. Doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
but it does. I think there's a direct correlation between how that all came about and, you know, what happened here. And I've been blessed to work for people, for direct leaders who have seen something in me that I never saw in myself. And so they push me to go way outside my comfort zone. How I'm chief growth officer here. That's thanks to Dina. And a call that she made to me while she got on an airplane. And before I could even contemplate what she was saying to me, she said, I had to go. I have to go. That they're closing the door. I have to turn off my cell phone. So I couldn't continue to talk. But same scenario. I worked for a very visionary chief HR officer at Four Seasons. He was there for a short period of time, just 3 years, which is a very short period in the in Four Seasons land before he retired. But his name is Ed Evans. And he was just somebody who had come in from completely outside. He has a hospitality degree, but he had worked all over different organizations, Republic Services at one point, running their HR. And he came in and really shot holes in the paradigm. At the time, the Four Seasons is just steeped in history, but there was there was a little bit of stagnation in terms of the culture, right? Things are, people are saying all right things, but is it really translating? And he came in and shook things up. And I remember initially when he started, I was like, who is this guy? But then I quickly bought into the direction it was going. And so I was voluntold that I needed to take over recruiting at my alma mater. And I'll come out and say it at Cornell's hotel school. So that goes back because I've always wanted to be in this business. And because my dad was a high school guidance counselor and told me if I want to be in this business, that's where to focus. And so I followed his guidance, even though I came from sunny Southern California and ended up in lake effect snow, upstate New York. But at the time, we had a huge challenge because the school, there was this massive dichotomy between the reputation of Four Seasons and the fact that students just didn't even bother engaging with the company. And we had to do something different. And what I did is I'm like, hey, give me a challenge and an impossible challenge, which was to redefine the reputation of Four Seasons at the Cornell Hotel School. And let's see what we can do. And so I ended up meeting with students and faculty and administration to find out what was the challenge. And the problem was we were doing the same things that everybody else was doing. So, we were doing the same type of info sessions. We were doing the same type of interviewing. Nothing we were doing was causing Four Seasons to stand out as an employer commensurate with its standout performance as a guest-centric brand. And there was just an expectation, if you're Four Seasons, you should be doing something different. So the very first year I took over, we just blew up the whole thing. We ended up doing an open house. We did a special reception for graduating seniors, people that had been interns with us, people that were going to be interviewing with us so that they could feel like there was a special event for them. I had our executive chef at our property here in Seattle develop a menu. I had our bar staff create a non-alcoholic, mocktails. so that the students that worked in the kitchens and at the bar could then, actually be creating Four Seasons menu and recipe items. We got into the classroom and engaged at the classroom level, not to sell the brand, but to be subject matter experts. And so I said, I want to know exactly wherever we're going to speak, where are you at in the curriculum for the semester, so that we're speaking in contemporary language to what the students are learning. And it totally changed. We got back to our place as the number one employer for graduating seniors within our very first year. Then, of course, that then became, well, Mike, you did that there. What's next, right? And so that just built, and that's how I ended up becoming director of university relations. And then that then rolled into the VP of early careers, because the intention at that point was to then build a roadmap of a faster track to the general manager level and the executive team level, because Four Seasons had a history or a reputation of, it takes you, 10 jobs, 20 moves, and 25 years to ever become a GM. And that just doesn't work in this day and age. Unfortunately, a little something happened in March of 2020 to bring that all to a halt. I don't know what it could be. So, which is fine, because as I like to say, you never know how green the grass is on the other side of the fence until you get thrown over it. And so much of what I learned and was able to do in that forward thinking role allowed me to bring it here to Staypineapple, and how we approached the people and culture side of things. And then eventually, obviously, now into the growth side. But you are absolutely right. It is about it's about meaningfully getting into the universities, getting into the classrooms. So many, students are hungry to hear reality versus theory. And I always would challenge anybody that was going to go guest speak. I want you to challenge the professor, because the chances are they've been out of the industry for a while. And the textbook has perfection, but we know this is a very special and unique business. And you have a perspective to bring to the student that will make the engagement and conversation in the classroom fun. So thank you for, again, asking that question.
No problem. To ask a next question, to segue, this is a somewhat of a technology podcast. So at a certain point, we should transition to talk about that. And your title is Chief Growth Officer, not Chief Technology Officer. So I'm wondering, and I guess Michael is as well, what exactly is your involvement with technology decisions? And if you could speak to how Staypineapple overall makes technology decisions at the executive level.
Can I actually add or into that, Adam? I think it'd be really interesting um, to focus on innovation. I think is
Yeah,
maybe more all encompassing versus
right.
technology. I think innovation. We'd love to hear about that. We have some great feedback and opinions about what State Pineapple is doing on the innovation side, but we'd love to hear it from from the chief growth officer.
All right. Well, in case you couldn't tell, I can go a little squirrel and go long winded. So just stop me if and seriously do interrupt me if you have a follow up or something that you'd like me to dive into a little bit more. But I think our innovative spirit, again, is born out of the fact that we've always had to be scrappy, right? From the very, very beginning, we've had to be opportunistic. And when you're always thinking in that mindset, it again allows you to get outside of the traditional paradigms that hold our industry back. And I think that there was something that happened on the technology side, and it is consistent with what I just talked about in terms of product. I think this is actually, we want to thread innovation through. We didn't go buy a package of goods for our soft goods product. We went and we individually hand selected what our team, they took those products home, they used them, they washed them, they slept in them, they dried off after they got out of the shower. And we said, okay, what is the best towel? What is the best sheet? What is the best mattress? What is the best bathrobe? Right? it didn't matter that it was, it was all a la carte, really, right? That same approach has been taken as we've looked at our technology stack. And it started pre-pandemic with two pieces of technology. One was our RMS. And when we made a decision to select an RMS, we went with Duetto. And it was pretty early on in their growth. And because we saw what was possible with Duetto and that it was so far advanced compared to its competitors. And that was really a huge payoff for us. And we also brought in somebody who was not from hotel. He was hotel adjacent, but in the tech space, to be the head of our CRM, and selected Salesforce as our CRM, which again, we're going back 6-7 years. That was unheard of in the hospitality space because, again, you were looking at, there needs to be a CRM that is specific to our industry. And the answer was no, let's go buy the best CRM that's out on the market. And so those two decisions in a pre-pandemic era then, translated to where we are today. And last year we made the decision that we're going to really push forward. If we are going to be a value add opportunity for the types of owners that we are seeking, we need to just rip the Band-Aid off and we need to overhaul the rest of our tech stack. And so that's what we did. And it started with the property management system. And we looked at all of the big players that are out there. We were on a system that I won't name that is, but it's probably the biggest in the industry, and has its roots back to 2001. So every incremental upgrade, it's still based in the fundamentals of a 24, 25-year-old foundation. And we went with Muse because we see what the opportunity is for the future. And it means that we're going to have to take a little bit of a hit in what's possible today, just because Muse is a new product, especially in North America and the United States, and translating a European product into this market does not come without its bumps and hiccups, but it is what the future is going to be. And what we loved about Muse was two things. One was the much simpler, intuitive interface for our team members on the front line, but it's scalable, it's growable, and the open API architecture, they're not afraid to say, listen, we'll give you a basic product in this or that or the other thing, but if there's something that's best in class out there that you want to plug in, let's do it. So then we took all the ancillary products and we went and we looked and we said, what is the very best? And it was, you would have the subject matter expert, but then we would also include our operations teams in that discussion process because they're the end users. And so we have this cool suite of all cloud-based that all talk to each other. And at the heart of all of it is not just a single system. It is not just the property management system, because PMSs they're property management. They're specific to the building. They're specific to the space, the guest room, the product that you're selling. But who's the most important equation in our world? Not what's the most important, who is the most important, and it's the guest. And so where do you capture all of the information and store all of that data? It isn't in the PMS. We've tried. And it's so difficult. You have notes that just keep going forever. It's so difficult to read them. You end up having all of these different acronyms that nobody understands. You have to be taught different languages. No, it's all in the CRM. And so we now have Salesforce and Muse talking to each other and being completely integrated in the communication between the two systems. And we're just now starting to, we decided, hey, listen, no more technology for a while. We need to now figure out what are we going to do with that which we have, and that's what 2025 is all about, and that's leveraging our technology. And we've developed what we call a personalization roadmap, which literally, it sits on my board here, and it is what allows us to say, okay, is what we are doing with our technology stack, does it accomplish what we need it to on our roadmap?
Mike, I will do a shameless plug, and I rarely do this, but because I really appreciate the clarity about the platforms. Um, Check out I Reckon You at some point as an alternative, perhaps, to your investment in Salesforce. I know that's very salesy of me. I apologize, but I'm just saying from a personal perspective, I think you guys just. I know that you're home and cooled out, but it's worth review because love people at Salesforce too. But there are other alternatives that we have identified for other clients that take what you talked about and even wider and deeper. Again, I'm not shilling. I'm just being open about as a leader or advisor for discussion. But
Yeah, and like I said, we're
your
always
thoughts?
we're always open to looking at alternatives, and and I think that's the other thing. We're still at a scale where we can be that we always want to be nimble. We do realize that the larger you get, the more difficult that becomes, and I think that is back to competitive advantage for us that you see with it's the large brands, or even if you come in as a lifestyle brand underneath all of that, the amount of bureaucracy it takes to move the ship and to change a single platform can take years, if not decades. Then it becomes proprietary, and I think we're always, hey, what's the newest, greatest, best thing out there that makes the most sense for who we are? So always happy to take a look.
You talk about ripping the Band-Aid off when it comes to technology, and that is much easier said than done. And hospitality does have a reputation for being slow to change. So I'm wondering, what have you seen? What have you done? And what would you advise for innovating quickly? And, whether that's failing fast forward or having decision timelines for saying, okay, well, we're going to investigate all the PMSs at this time. We're going to make a final decision by this time. How do you execute change quickly in 2025?
There's no right answer to that question, because you are going to, whatever you do and however you decide to approach it, there's going to be collateral damage. I don't know how to put it any other way. I do think, most importantly, I think there's due diligence that has to always be done. But what I think I see way too often is there becomes obsession in the collective decisions, and that everybody has to buy in, and that everybody has to agree. And when that happens, you just never get anywhere. And so I think, when we
So,
were
Mike,
looking
you're talking about paralysis by analysis in some respects.
paralysis by analysis, but also the concept that everybody's got to feel good about it.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and I just think back to, my previous life, and there was this one thing. There was one thing I was trying to get across the finish line. And in 9 months, no, year and a half, actually, uh, it never got across the finish line, because it was a constant of, this division needs to look at it and they need to have their input, and then they make the changes. And then it just keeps going and going and going. So I think what we did is we said, listen, we do need to do due diligence. In a perfect world, you would pilot everything that you have, but that doesn't, we tried that with the latest version of the previous operating system we were using. We used it for a year at a hotel, and we realized, okay, that's not going to work. So you can't constantly be trialing and having everybody on different systems. By doing that, we had data integrity problems, because not everything was the same. But getting the key stakeholders to the table, I think, is crucial. And it's not everybody. So even though I'm on the executive leadership team, and the people in development at the time, and the people side of things, I don't need to be a part of that conversation. My biggest concern is, the only thing I would add is, how does that impact the team members, right? What does their experience look like? Is it going to be better, or is it going to be more complicated by this? But other than that, I'm not the one at the table. It's operations. It's not just the head of operations. It's GMs that are on the ground. It's getting some of our most valued team members that we think are the best at what they do to be able to try out and test the software before we make a decision. And, you know, it's a tight group is going to be most affected by the decision-making process. It's also knowing when to say we might need to stop or we might need to pivot. So Muse was not one of the top two initially of our property management system options when we were making a decision. But we had a change in leadership in our IT division. And with that change, we decided to ask the new head of IT to revisit before we made a final decision. And as such, what we're choosing from with these two is what's best today. But what we need to be thinking about is what's best tomorrow, because we're looking to be the leaders of tomorrow's hospitality industry. And that's what caused us to pivot. So I think it's also, not being afraid to take risk if you see the potential for the future. And we are currently in a time, and we're in an industry that has this really difficult time taking it moving beyond the foundations that have existed. It can be technology, the use of just archaic foundational technology that inherently, doesn't talk to each other well. It can be in terms of systems and processes, and in terms of the way in which, in the hotel development and investment space, there's this yearning to go back in time to a pre-pandemic scenario and the stability and all of the knowns that existed. And that's the way in which, deals are done and financing is handled. And it's like, that's not the world we live in today. And at some point there has to be a change to that paradigm, but it's not just that. You take the entirety of the industry, and we are very much stuck, I feel, in a 1990s mindset 30 years later. And we are always, as you've spoken about, Michael, we're always pushing against that. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Just briefly, Adam. We all, a lot of us say this. We know this. This is not the most easy industry in the world. It's a very fulfilling industry, but hotels are hard, and every hotel is a snowflake. And especially for your brand, it's even more interesting because it's not just the infrastructure or the aesthetic or the innovation that you deploy. Literally, in your world, in your brand portfolio, every hotel literally is a snowflake. There's a lot of differentiation in the properties, and I find it fascinating when organizations, small, medium, and large, and you guys are a growing brand, a growing entity, to have a level of consistency, which is important, a level of optimization, while still maintaining the patina of each property or the local experience of each property. And Adam and I have talked about this within Gain many times, where it's this balance that, it's very challenging to have consistency, to have brand standards, to have a quality of service, but also still maintain the karma, energy, and differentiation of, do I want to stay at perfectly fine, generic box hotel, which is fine, and that's how you scale and grow in massive numbers, or do you want to have more of a bespoke boutique experience that is consistent enough as I travel through your portfolio as a guest, for example?
well, and it comes back to what matters most, right? What matters most is the consistency of the soft product, which allows you then to do a lot with individualizing the rest of the product, right? And making it unique to that particular market, and the consistency of the service experience. Now, when I say the consistency of that doesn't mean that every interaction is scripted, right? But it is about who you hire. Do they align? Questions we ask are ensuring that there's an alignment with the values and purpose of the organization, right? And it's ensuring that those folks are encouraged to be demonstrative of themselves and their community. And we call it friend style service. That's not that we're going to be your friend, but it is friend style service that really just, it takes that wall down that exists right? And we live in an era where it's so polarized and there's so much palpability and tension among people these days. When you walk into a hotel or a service environment, that is the most important place for us to get back to the basics of humanity. And that's what we want our people to be doing. That's the consistency that we want our guests to experience, so that when they go to the Maxwell in Seattle or they go to Staypineapple in New York, you're getting very unique people with very different experiences and backgrounds and cultures and all of that and community. But you have this same overall feeling that ties it all together.
That's awesome. So I want to close out today's conversation with one other feature for Staypineapple, and that's on a furrier note. So our furry friends, you talk about friend style service. Your hotels are also dog friendly.
They're
So
not dog friendly. We're dog obsessed.
dog
Yes,
obsessed.
you're dog obsessed.
Ah,
Yes.
so that is a huge value add because there are a lot of people that travel with dogs and they're always looking specifically for that consistency, knowing which hotels are dog friendly, dog obsessed. But that is a huge cost center for a lot of hotels as well. So I'm wondering, could you just talk about how this dog obsession emerged and also how you keep costs under wraps?
Couple of things. So yeah, so we goes back to Michelle, huge dog lover. So we have on every bed, and I wish I had one. I have one over on a bookshelf. But we have a stuffed Dash dog, and Dash is a real dog, husky, which in case everybody knows, University of Washington is based in Seattle in this market, and husky is its mascot, so kind of appropriate. And so that Dash Stuffy is just, everybody absolutely loves it. They want to buy it, and a portion of proceeds go to the local Humane Society in the markets. And so Michelle's family, it's been longtime supporters of Seattle Humane here in Bellevue, Washington. And so part of it is the dog obsession of the ownership that then translated into something that works so well for our guests. And I think the cost center piece of it, I think a lot of people talk themselves into it. A couple of things. You ensure that when you have dogs in a hotel that there's a limitation on which rooms that they, can utilize. I know that's something that Kim Finnegan back in the day, that was when I would stay. That was a really important feature for us as dog mom and dad. Like what we do is, okay, and there's a fee, there's a pet fee. So that people don't expect to walk into a hotel, any hotel that accepts their dogs and not expect that there's going to be a cost associated with that. So I think that is first. We do charge a pet fee, but we make sure that it's not just revenue that comes to us, regardless of, what your dog does and how much.
So Mike, it's not just like a resort fee type scenario, which is like this tax basically.
No, it is specific only for, if you're bringing your pet. But then we roll out the red carpet, or in this case, the yellow carpet, for your dogs. I mean, we have custom designed dog beds. We have custom designed dog bowls. There's the board in the lobby welcoming the dog. You get special treat scenarios. It's we saying, okay, we know that this is a family member for you. And you have come with an expectation that you're going to pay something for that. Well, you should be getting something for that. And too often it's just, oh, we allow dogs. There's a fee, BYO on everything. Well, no, there are hotel guests too. And the other thing that we do is we allow your dog to hang out in a room alone, which you don't see. And the only thing we do is there's a special do not disturb sign, because we like to get creative with that. So our normal do not disturb sign is I'm naked if it's D&D, and I'm dressed if it's okay to come clean my room. And in this case, I can't remember the exact wording, but it basically is, mom and dad are away, so you go, or mom and dad aren't here, go away, so that way our staff aren't walking into the room, with the dog alone. But right, and we don't have problems. I say this, knocking on wood, but I think there becomes again the overthink about what could possibly happen. And we're not dealing with messes all the time. We're not dealing with, issues all the time with interactions between the pets and humans. Because I think most people that are bringing their pets with them, they understand there's a certain, decorum that needs to, and there's an embarrassment if something were to go wrong. So I think it's a lot of it's just not getting into our own head. And then that allows us to be a true differentiator. And one last thing, brand standard as hotels get refurbished within our system, our hard surface floors.
Well, I think that's a great way to finish off. Mike, is there anything else you want to add that we haven't covered?
No, I appreciate some of your own, your own observations. Makes it so it's not just me telling a story, because I think we hear so often, we hear the dream. In this case, people are actually experiencing what it is that we're selling. So much fun. I think more than anything, from a leadership perspective, you have to have fun at the top of the organization. The people that are at the top of the organization have to really like each other. And that then translates down. And I think that that's what has been some of the secret to our success, is that we have fun being together and engaging with one another and working together. It doesn't mean that every day that it doesn't get stressful, but that is so critical from a cultural standpoint, how it flows through to the line level team members that then ultimately translates to the guest experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more in general. And I will say this is how we built our organization and why I think we can have these conversations is, first of all, yes, of course, many of us have been doing this a long time, but it's that community, the network, a real term network, not the perfunctory business network. Like actual real relationships with real people, listening and talking, not just talking. All of those things, and having this energy and focus of that we all work in a very special industry, and we're very fortunate to work in this industry. And to just wrapping up too, Adam, to your point earlier, this next gen, like where's the next generation of hoteliers coming from, and tech executives, and well, they're going to come because people like us, hopefully, are sharing why this is a special industry, why there's a level of camaraderie that is not typical in every other industry, and the fact that when it is personified for guests and distilled for a brand, it can be incredibly impactful and successful. And without being too fanboyish, that's what Staypineapple has done and is doing. So I really appreciate being involved, Adam, in this conversation particularly. But thank you for the time, Mike, and Adam, off to you.
Yeah, Mike, this was fantastic. Lots of timeless lessons, and it's something that really, really we have a lot for our whole industry to learn from in terms of what Staypineapple is doing. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Appreciate both of your time as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for listening to the Gain Momentum podcast. To stay up to date, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Gain Advisors, head to gainadvisors.com.